Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's wonderful to see all of you here tonight. And so glad that everybody wants to hear updates about the summer and start preparing for camp. I am really excited, as I'm sure many of you are too. I introduced myself once at the beginning. I know many of you already know me. I'm Sarah. I'm the director up at UNLA, and I'm really looking forward to being there with many of you and many of your children this summer. We will be holding a couple more of these Q&As as we approach summer. And although we may cover some of the same things in different Q&As, we may cover different things too. So feel free to come to the other ones as well, just putting that out there, that could be good information later as well. I'm going to start out today, want to share the good news. There's been great news in the last few weeks as far as summer camps go. About 2 weeks ago, the state of California said that they were going to for sure allow residential camps to operate starting June 1st, which was a very, very good thing because they had not said that yet. So all the way since whenever it was last spring when they had said they might at some point say that. So that was really, really wonderful news that we got a couple weeks ago, is that the state government has given us the go-ahead to run programs this summer. Other great news is we have been working hard to get our staff vaccinated for this summer, and that's going really well. I'd say at least a third, maybe more than that, of our staff are already vaccinated or partway on their way to vaccinated against COVID. So that's a really, really positive development for us as well for this summer. Having a fully vaccinated staff would be really, really great, for both for their safety and also just for the safety of everybody involved up at camp. And so yeah, what I want to talk a little bit more about now, I'm not going to present for that long because I want to get to questions. I'm sure people have a lot of questions about this summer, and I want to make sure that I give ample time for people to ask the questions that they have. But I do want to talk a little bit about this coming summer and how it's different, and really the things that we can do starting now to make it safe and successful. As I just said, there's been some really good news when it comes to COVID recently. Obviously, we have seen a huge drop in cases since the peak in January, which has been very, very encouraging. We've got this news about summer camps running. Vaccine rollout seems to actually be rolling now. So lots of good news when it comes to COVID, but things that we do know is that this summer is absolutely still going to be a summer where COVID is going to be a real risk that we're going to need to be taking account for and paying attention to. We know that very few of our campers will be able to be vaccinated. There'll be a few, but not very many. We expect that most of our youth are going to be coming to camp unvaccinated. And we also know that it's highly likely that there'll still be a pretty good community spread, as they call it, throughout our communities, that it's unlikely that we'll reach herd immunity by the time that we're actually having summer camp. And so having said that, we are going to make sure that we are doing everything we can to keep our campers and our staff safe at UNLA this summer. And a lot of that has to do with all of you and what you do. I like to say the number one thing that you can do to make sure that we're all healthy at camp is come to camp healthy. If we don't have any people that are sick at camp with COVID, then we can't pass it to each other. And so staying healthy before camp is going to be a huge thing coming up for this summer. And it's something that we can start thinking about now. I know we've all been living in this COVID-19 world for over a year now, and we're probably getting really good at washing our hands. And the idea of wearing masks has become quite normal for all of us, I'm sure. But I really just want to emphasize how using these practices and these things that we've learned that we know reduce the spread of COVID-19 in the time before you come to camp are really crucial to making sure that our summer camp season goes well. You may or may not have got a chance to look at our draft COVID-19 procedures yet. We are going to do a second draft of that soon, actually, which we'll release to you, and we'll send everybody a link to that so you can look at. And then we'll have a final draft at the beginning of May, which we'll send out to everybody and ask them to read and acknowledge that they'll follow them. And as part of those procedures, one of the really key parts right up front is that we're asking people, particularly before they come to camp, just to really be thinking about their actions and participating only in low risk behaviors for the 10 days that they come before camp. If, like I said, if we can all come to camp healthy, we are going to have an absolutely amazing, safe summer. That's the number one thing we can absolutely do. And I just want to extend out that practicing those low risk behaviors now, both just so we're good at it, but also so that we help reduce community spread throughout our communities, is another thing that will help us all come to camp healthy and then therefore stay safe. So just like as a little reminder out there, like I said, I think we've all gotten pretty used to wearing our masks. We should keep wearing our masks when we're out in public. There has been a ton of research that shows that being outside just greatly reduces the risk of transmission of COVID-19. So opting for activities and doing things outside is absolutely the way to go. At least I don't know where you all are, but down here in the Bay Area, it's actually gotten quite nice now. So it's even a nice thing to do, is to get outside. And of course, we know you all are outdoor enthusiasts, because at UNLA, we're outside all the time, which is really, really fortunate for us. And then being mindful about who the people you're interacting with, really trying to limit your interactions with people outside your household. And when you do, making sure that you're taking precautions like wearing a mask or social distancing, trying to have gatherings outside, are all things that we can really do to help stop the spread of COVID-19 and make sure that, like I said, we all come to camp healthy. I want to say again, I know I said it before, but I want to say again about hand washing. Hand washing, it's great stuff. It keeps us healthy, both from COVID, but also from other sicknesses. COVID's got this sort of like annoying thing to it. There's a lot of annoying things about COVID, let's be honest, but that the symptoms of COVID are wide. There are many, many, many different ones, and you could very well have some other kind of illness, like say the common cold, and it might end up looking a little like COVID. And if you come down with something like that in the 10 days before coming to camp, we're going to be asking campers that are feeling any kind of sickness not to come to camp. And so I really want to encourage you to be thinking about your health, not just when it comes to COVID, but just your general health, really staying healthy, washing hands, keeping your hands away from your face and mouth before you come to camp, so that we're really all in the best of health and have no questions about what our health status is. Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge that I know we're all tired of COVID, and we're all tired of taking these precautions and doing it. But the fact that we're going to get to have this experience, that we're going to get to be at camp, and we're going to get to be in the mountains, and that we are allowed to do these things unlike we were last summer, is really, really so wonderful. And I really hope that you all believe it's worth it to take those extra precautions to make sure that we can, in fact, do it, and do it in a safe way. But I just want to acknowledge that I know it's hard, and that even though it's only a couple more months, it's still hard. It really is. And I feel for that. And then I just want to talk a little bit about some things that are going to be different at camp, but are still going to be great. So as you know, or I hope you know, because when you signed up, you looked at the different programs that you were available for you to sign up to and pick the one that was appropriate to you. We're doing a whole lot more backpacking programs. And so that's going to be different. But I just want to put it out there to the campers that have never done a backpacking trail program, as we call them before, the extended backpacking programs, that even though it's going to be different, you're going to love it. Trail programs are one of the programs that we actually get the highest ratings from our campers. The kids that come back from those groups are generally the ones that say they had the best experiences at UNLA. So if you're maybe feeling a little nervous about it, that's totally fine. But also maybe feel a little nervous excited, because almost any camper, myself included, would say that going on trail was one of their best experiences as a UNLA camper. So I want to put that out there. And then if you're in a base camp program, that's also going to be different. We're not going to have the same, if you've been to UNLA before, we're not going to have the same structure where you go to a morning meeting and you learn about the activities from the day, and then you go choose where you're going to go. You're going to go from each activity to other activities with your group that you're living with. But I just want to put it out there that even though you're moving with this same group of people, you're still going to have lots of choices. Every different activity area is going to have different activities you can participate in. You're going to get a chance to do almost all of the activities that you normally would during UNLA summer. It's just going to be a little more scheduled than it normally would. As well, another thing that's going to be different because of not having things like morning meeting or our other group activities like campfire that we would normally do, is actually the whole just pace of the day is going to be a lot more relaxed, which could be really, really nice for people. There's not going to be that same sense of rush through the day that there often is at camp. There'll be more time to relax, which I think is something that maybe we'll really, really appreciate, and is going to give us the opportunity to get to know the other people in our group even better than we normally would, and perhaps form bonds that are even stronger than we normally would. And so, although it's different and that's maybe a little daunting, I just want to put that out there as another thing to maybe be excited about, that we might really, really like this summer that might come out of camp. And it's still going to be in the Trinity Alps. It's still going to be beautiful. And we're still going to get to do pretty much most of the wonderful camp activities that we normally get to do. So yeah, I've talked for a good 10 minutes or so. I think that I am going to pause for a minute, see if we have any questions that have come through. And then also open it up for questions, which can be specific or can be more broad. Like, could you tell us more about said activities or said protocol, or it could also be specific about some like said protocol. So I'm just glancing over the chat here. Definitely fine to put a question in the chat, but also you can raise your hand. I see a raised hand, and I can call you out too. I do see that there is a question in the test. What if you get tested and don't test positive? I'm not quite sure I understand that question, Luke. If you can maybe rephrase it.
Sure.
There,
you
sure.
said that if you said earlier that if you got a cold or something in the 10 days before or had cold-like symptoms, you'd be asked not to come to camp. What if during you get the symptoms, you go get a COVID test, you test negative, verifying that it was in fact a cold? Is it still no go to camp, or what is the reasoning behind that? I just wanted to check.
Gotcha. Yes, I understand your question. Thank you, Luke. I think that I will double check with my medical team on that, but I think that if you were to have symptoms, get a test, it was negative, then you would be cleared to go. That would be fine. It would be if it was after you had gotten a negative test, then you still had, and then you developed symptoms, then
that's obviously not great.
Then another negative test would be required, but I will double check on that because that's a good clarifying question. Thank you. And let's see. Are you considering requiring COVID testing? Yes, we are. The question is, are you considering requiring COVID testing prior to arrival? And the answer is, we're not just considering it. We have decided that yes, we will be requiring testing before arrival. What camps weeks are available? Our sessions are almost entirely full. In our third session program, which is only 10 days, which starts on August 5th, there are a few spots left in our Summit to Summit program. But other than that, everything is pretty full right now. There are wait lists for all of our programs. The wait lists for our third session are pretty short. The first session wait lists are slightly longer. The second session wait lists are lengthy, is how I would describe them. Let's see. No family camp this year. At this point, we are not planning to run a family camp this summer. no, sorry. We decided that we were going to focus on our camper programs, as that is the core of our mission. And we really want to make sure that we're doing those right and we're doing them safe. So focusing on those. Will there be buses taking kids to camp this year? Yeah, the answer is no. We're not doing mass bus transportation like we normally would do. We just feel like there's too much risk in that setting. We are asking, our number one preference is that parents or guardians drop their kids off at Scott Mountain Summit for their program. That's by far the safest way to get to camp. Being in enclosed spaces like buses is definitely a dangerous spot. For those campers that absolutely can't get to camp without provided transportation, we are working to do some individualized transportation within cohorts. So only kids from the same group will drive together with a Unilay driver in a Unilay vehicle. And so if you, in fact, it's crucial for you to have transportation in order to get to camp. That is something that we're working to providing, but it's not going to be the normal bus transportation that we normally do. And when you applied, there was a place to say what kind of transportation you needed. If you aren't sure what you put on your enrollment form, or you need to change something, just contact our office, let them know, and we'll update it. Are we going to be wearing masks at or during camp? Great question. And so the answer to that is, and actually this reminds me that I should preface all of these answers that have to do with our COVID-19 procedures, is that we've put together a really detailed list of our COVID-19 procedures, which we think are pretty good for keeping our campers safe. The state has said that they are going to shortly release their own guidelines, and it's possible that we may have to modify our procedures to meet their guidelines in order to operate. If/when that happens, we of course will update all of you with the changes, but I'm just putting out there that everything I say now is not set in stone, because the health department may in fact say we have to do something a little different than what we planned, and we'll follow whatever guidelines they require us to follow. But when it comes to masks, currently we're going to require campers to wear masks only in certain situations. So whenever they are participating when they're in an area where there are kids other than their cohort. So like examples of that, if they had to go to Central or to the nurse's shack for some reason, then they would need to wear a mask. As well, if we do any all camp activities in base camp, like we're haven't exactly figured out what it's going to look like, but we're going to do something for Special Day. We are, and it's going to be socially distanced, but in those kind of large camp settings, we're going to require masks. As well, there's going to be some specific scenarios within the cohort that are particularly close contact where we're going to ask kids to wear masks, such as food prep. The ACA, American Camping Association's guidelines recommend that everybody doing food prep and food service wears masks while they're doing so. So we will be following that guidance. As well, if campers are participating in an activity where they're really up close and personal, then we're asking to wear masks in those situations too. Like something that comes right off the top of my mind is maybe if everybody was bending over a map together, their heads were close, then we'd be asking them to wear a mask situation. But for the most part, when you're with your cohort, you're not going to need to wear a mask. And that was the same question again. There's a question about a new camper who hasn't been away from home for long and staying in touch with the family. So this is not a COVID specific question, but it's a great question anyways. So up at camp, we don't have phone service. We don't have internet. There's no opportunities for campers to be in touch with their family. In that sense, we do highly encourage people to write letters. We have lots of paper and pens and stamps. We love to have campers write and receive letters, and we highly encourage families to send letters to their campers as well. But there isn't any kind of phone or internet communication while you're at Unilay. Is there any chance that you will offer the bus service to camp? No, we're not going to offer a normal bus service to camp. But like I said, if your family is a family that won't be able to get their kid to camp without transportation, let our office know, and we're working on a potted transportation scenario, so your kid can still get to camp even though we're not doing buses. Are we going to be in tents? Well, we actually never sleep, or not usually sleep in tents at Unilane. Most of the time we just sleep out in the stars. All campers are welcome to bring their own tent and sleep in it if they want. That's absolutely allowed and is still allowed. The normal rules is that you're not allowed to share a tent with anybody other than your sibling, and that will continue to be the rule. But in practice, pretty much everybody sleeps out under the stars. In bad weather, we have tarps that we set up that campers sleep under. We have very little bad weather, especially as of late. But you're welcome to bring your own tent if you want. Masks on the trail programs go similar to that. There's going to be, because they're always in their cohorts, it's going to be only in very limited situations that masks would be required. Like I said, again, food prep, we would still be following that rule. Or if you were doing some activity like looking over a map where your heads were all going to be close together for a while, then we would ask campers to wear masks in those situations. But it's not going to be very often. Will siblings be in the same cohort? If they want to be, is the answer to that. They are not required to be, but if they would like to be, then they certainly can be. And if you just either put that on your enrollment form, we'll make sure it happens, or you can also just message our office and we'll put in our notes and we can make sure that they are in the same cohort. Is it possible for parents within a cohort to help with this transportation logistics by carpooling? Yeah, we are working on how we can arrange carpooling within cohorts because we do think that that is safe enough. So that's something that we're logistically working on right now. Can our child request to be grouped with our friend? Absolutely. We definitely take friend requests. If you ask for like 5 friends, then it might get hard. But if you ask for like 1 or 2 friends, absolutely, you can all be in the same cohort. Again, if you put it on your follow-up paperwork that you send in, we'll get it that way, or you can just email our office and we will put it into the into our database that way. Can you provide some information about the timing of drop-off and pickup so that we can plan the driving? Yes, we will be sending out like final drop-off and pickup times in May. They are going to be staggered. We're going to have, for different cohorts, are going to arrive half an hour apart to help us do our screening procedure. But the times of arrivals will be between noon and 3, and well, I guess it'll be noon and 3:30. And the times of pickups will be between, well, be in the same time range is what they'll be at the end of the session. And we will email you with your confirmed pickup and arrival time sometime in May is when we will release those final dates as we actually put together the final cohorts. But that's to start planning. It's between 12 and 3:30. Follow up on the symptoms and testing question. If a camper has, I'm just going to read this once I read it real quick because it's a little bit longer and then I'll summarize. So this is asking if a camper has symptoms and then gets a negative COVID test, but still is symptomatic on their way to camp, will they be asked to stay home? And again, I will check in with my medical team about this to make sure that I'm right, because I'm not positive, but I think that the answer is no, they won't be asked to come home. If they have received a negative COVID test and their symptoms are just still continuing, that they will be allowed to come to camp. But that's a great question. And I will ask, I will check in with my medical team and make sure that that's clarified and specific within our COVID procedures. Will there be access to showers and toilets? In our base camp, we have solar powered showers as well as pit toilets. In our trail programs, there are no showers or toilets, and we teach our campers how to use the bathroom on the trail without toilets, part of the program. Yeah, so this is again about tents. On the trail, we generally do not bring tents. We generally bring group tarps, which we will share in the case of rain. And even in the time of COVID, we will sleep head to toe under those tarps. There's also a lot of airflow under tarps, and so they've been deemed to be relatively safe even with COVID. There's a question is, will we be under quarantine ahead of camp, which I spoke to a little bit at the beginning. So for the 10 days prior to camp arrival, what we're going to be asking is that campers really just be really cognitive of their actions and that what they're doing, and that they only participate in low risk activities. So that looks like it's more like knots are almost easier, you know, not going to movie theaters or amusement parks. Those are pretty high risk. Trying to minimize travel whenever you can. If you do have to travel, making sure that you're wearing a mask when you're going into places. If you do have to travel by air, making sure that you're masked the entire time that you're on your journey. Etc. It is okay to be in other programs, like say another camp, as long as they also have procedures and protocols which are minimizing risk and keeping you safe. So I wouldn't say it's a quarantine. It's a period where you're really paying attention to participating in low risk behaviors. Do the trail program kids get to go swimming? Absolutely. We are working hard to have lots and lots of lifeguards on staff so that all of our trips can go swimming. How does the food work on the trail, and do kids carry any of the food? Yes, absolutely. We pack the food for the campers, and then the counselors lay it all out for them and pass it out to different kids to carry different amounts of food depending on their size and their ability for how much they can carry. Different kids carry different amounts, but absolutely everybody helps carry the food. Also, campers are encouraged to help in the preparation of food. I hope that answers that question. How many hours does it take to get from the Bay Area? About 6. It depends where you are in the Bay Area, but 6, give or take, depending on where you are. As far as picking kids up, where do parents generally stay? There are certainly parents that just do the whole drive back and forth in one day. It's happened. Also, good places to stay, though, are Weed and Mount Shasta are really pretty close, have reasonably priced hotels. If you're into camping, there are tons of campgrounds in the area, like just so many campgrounds in the area. Let me know. I can recommend ones that I like that are free or not free. Lots and lots of places to camp in the area. Yeah, there's a question is it okay to fly in the 10-day period? It is okay. It is allowed to fly. You are allowed to fly within the 10-day period before coming to camp. We just ask that when you're flying to please really be making sure that you're following safety precautions and doing everything you can to stay safe during your travel. A really good last question that we have here is, it's not the last question anymore, but was for just a second. Does Umbrella Tree still stand, and is it still called that? One of the better questions I've seen all night. I kid. Umbrella Tree still stands, but is no longer alive. And it is, in fact, still called that, and is still, in fact, very important. When will cohorts be decided? They will be decided by mid-May, hopefully, end of May at the very, very latest. But I'm aiming for mid-May. What will happen with special days, and will there be special cereal? Also an extremely important question. Thank you, Rubens. Special day, exactly what it's going to look like, we're still figuring it out. We're not going to be able to have the big camp meals that we normally did, but we are dedicated to making sure that special day is still special. We know how important it is. And yes, we have absolutely decided that there will still be special cereal and real milk. That's 100% something that's going to happen. What kind of activities will there be? In base camp, I'm assuming. There's going to be most of the activities we normally do. Just a sort of shorter list of it is there's going to be our rock wall, there's going to be archery, there's going to be swimming, there's going to be boating, there's going to be basketball and soccer and frisbee, there's going to be fishing, there's going to be arts and crafts of all different kinds. Our craft shack is still going to operate. We plan to do tie-dye, we'll have friendship bracelets, we'll have knitting, we'll have drawing, we'll have painting, we'll have letter writing. There'll still be games, we'll still have music available. What other places? We're still going to do day hiking. That's probably not surprising. And there's probably others that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but those are some of the ones that we normally do and are absolutely still going to do. For the Summit, will there be s'mores? That's a great question. You know, there could be s'mores as long as there isn't restrictions where we can't make fires. I'm gonna note that one. That I don't think I can pronounce your name correctly, so I'm not going to try. I don't want to mess it up, but I'm gonna note that group wants some s'mores. How much snow is in the basin currently? I don't know exactly. My guess is probably like 4 to 5 feet, maybe something like that. We've gotten a fair amount of snow this year, not as much as we'd love. I think we're maybe something like 80% of normal, which is better than some years, but we like 100% is what we like. There's a question of how far they hike in the Summit Summit program. The Summit Summit programs hike pretty far. It does depend a little bit on the group. When you filled out your enrollment forms, you said what the hiking ability of your camper was and their desired trip length. And so we'll design the trips based off of that. But they generally hike pretty far, and it's asked, can they make it to the marbles? They can make it to the marbles. I would say not all Summit Summit trips go that far, but I would say the farthest ones can. Where do I find a list of things to pack and what the camper is supposed to bring? So if you have already enrolled, Claudia hopefully sent you a follow-up email, which had a packet of forms. And in that packet of forms, there was a camper pack list. If for some reason you don't have those forms, or if you're not already enrolled, if you're on our website and you go to the base camp page, there is also, or you click on the camper button, there's also a link to our pack list from those pages as well. Maybe actually, Max, if you could real quick find the link to that, Max will drop it into the chat, the link to the pack list. Age range for base camp is 10 to 12, although we do have a few campers that are 13 and 14 that have never backpacked before that are going to be in our base camp program. And we'll be putting them to the same cohort so that people are more or less with people their age. How cold does it get at night? It varies a lot from session to session. The weather patterns certainly change, but I would say cold is what it gets. I'd say the 40s at night. It's not warm at night. Some nights are warmer. Some nights are quite warm, but I would prepare that it could be in the 40s at night. Is there Magic the Gathering will be an activity this year? Well, I would say yes. We still have the supplies for it. So I would think there would be the opportunity to play Magic the Gathering, although not all of our staff know how to play it. So hopefully we can get Lachlan with a staff member that knows how to play it. And Max has dropped the link to our equipment list for Base Camp into the chat here. And I think I finally made it to the bottom of the chat again. I can also take any questions if you raise a hand as well. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. They've all been fantastic. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions out there? Daytime temps, also good question. I would say, again, varies certainly, but I would say 70s, mid 70s to 90s to low 90s are midday temps. Do any of the counselors know or are a dungeon master? So I know that there are a number of people on our staff that are involved in Dungeons and Dragons play. I don't know exactly what all of their knowledge levels are. Can there still be eating contests? I think there can still be eating contests within the cohort. Yeah, I can see that happening for sure. What kind of medical support is there on the trail? So all of our trail counselors are certified in either wilderness first aid or wilderness first responders. So they have a certain level of medical training themselves as well. All of our staffs carry radios that they can call back to camp, where our nurse is there for extended medical advice. And of course, if needed, we are a phone call away from, calling EMS and getting even more advanced medical help if needed. how will camp be split for backpacking to staying at base? Jacob, I'm not sure I understand your question. You could either unmute yourself and rephrase it or try and type it in.
Like this might be dependent on like which one you're going. Sorry, like which kind of step you're doing. But like the time spent between like I normally it's like it was about like kind of half with how much half the time you spend at base and the half time you spend backpacking. Is that different? I may have misunderstood, but I feel like you were saying it was different because of COVID.
Yeah, so it's going to depend again which program you're in. If you're in the base camp program, then it's the same as it normally was. But if you're in one of the trail programs, then it's anywhere from 13 days to all 15 days on the trail is what it is. But it's going to depend on which program you're in. And then I have how important are good swimming skills? And my answer is not that important. We do swim tests for all of our campers at the beginning. And if they're good swimmers, then they're allowed to swim further. If they don't want to take the swim test or don't feel comfortable or just are not that good of swimmers, then they can be what we call non-swimmers, which just means that they still can absolutely get in the water and play around, but are just not allowed to go into deeper water. So not required that you be particularly good at swimming. Any other questions out there? Great.
Say something, Sarah?
Huh?
Can I say something?
Jay, absolutely.
Well, hello, everyone. What a great turnout. I'm so excited to see everyone here. We are looking so forward to running camp, differently, but running. And I'm here on behalf of the board of directors. We may have another board member on the call here. It says Tom's iPhone. I'm not sure if that's Tom Bewey or not, but I'm here just on behalf of the board, just saying we're really thrilled that we can run camp again.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, I see one more. Oh, I see a couple more questions. If we have more questions, who do we email? I'm probably the best person to email. I will put my email in the chat right now. It's friends@cohorts.com. So that's me. Sarah is a great email to email with more questions. And do you recommend that campers train for their long hikes? If so, do you have any resources to share on this? Thanks. I'd say if a camper hasn't been on a long hike before, that going on a few practice hikes is a great idea. Absolutely. And as far as resources, I assume you mean places to go hiking. I would say that I have resources depending on where you live. And so if you want to talk more about that, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can come up with some good places to do some training. Let's see. Great. Any others? How big are the trailheads? All of the cohorts are 8 campers, and the trail cohorts have 2 staff. The base camp cohorts have 3, but all of them are 8 campers. Wonderful. Thank you so much to everybody for being here. I see one hand. The Gibbs family, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I was wondering, when do we figure out who our counselors are?
Yeah, so you won't actually find out who your counselors are till you arrive at camp, is when that will happen. Great, wonderful. In that case, I think that we will say thank you again so much for attending. We cannot wait to see you at UNLA. Please email me if you have other questions. And as well, please plan on coming to future Q&As too, because there'll may be new information, and also other people have great questions. It's always good to hear other people's questions too, right? So yeah, wonderful to see all of your faces. And we will see you in the mountains before not too long. Thanks so much, everybody.